So, Mark, we both saw the new movie by the Coen brothers, Burn After Reading. So, what are some of your thoughts on this movie?
Burn After Reading. Yeah. Well, blessings to the Coen brothers. Let's start there. I thought it was a really, really interesting movie. I thought it was really well done. But there was one particular thing that I thought was like really important, which is why I emailed you about it, which is it's a movie that is very rare in that it recognizes, the subtlety, the complexity, both of masculine shadow, right? You had a kind of, interesting kind of view of masculine shadow, like the CIA agent who's fired and who clearly has this kind of drinking problem. He's a basically good guy, but who is kind of lost in his rage. But
Right.
most of the movie actually was actually more about masculine buffoonery, right? There was that great scene with the Princeton guys singing, all these successful Princeton guys. The CIA the entire time basically can't figure out what the heck's going on. They're not bad guys. They're just like, whatever. It's kind of this kind of masculine buffoonery, kind of like the men are almost like dumb blondes in some way. That kind of, transference of that caricature onto men, but with huge feminine shadow. There's this huge recognition of feminine shadow, and there's this, I'm madly in love with the feminine and with the goddess, but one of the things I've come to understand over time is that I made a certain mistake in my writing in kind of identifying the feminine with the spiritual. Not only in my writing, it was also my experience. Like, that the feminine was kind of, the great goddess, and I didn't quite take seriously enough, the kind of stuff that the Talmud talks about in great depth, which is, there's also feminine shadow, just like there's masculine shadow. If you look at the story, the absurdity of the storyline, there's this woman who basically feels like she's not beautiful enough to get a relationship. So for the sake of the relationship, she's willing to actually have a whole bunch of people killed. The CIA, her best friend, the man who really loves her, all these people are brutally killed in order for her, she's willing to betray her country. Right? It's incredibly hilarious. It's a hilarious view of feminine shadow in a kind of absurd kind of comedy. If we'd make the list, so she's willing to betray her country, cause, the deaths of at least 3 men, brutal deaths, and, she's just driving towards getting her, facelift, and the reason she wants a facelift is because she wants to be in a relationship. So maybe I'll do one more minute and toss it right back over to you. So I tried to kind of set up over the last couple of years of thinking about this, to set up a kind of schematic, a kind of, sacred map to kind of explain it. And here it is in 1 minute, before, I turn the phone over to you, Levi. So the way it would work is as follows. Masculine and feminine are both neutral. They both have shadow, they both have light. As the Torah, in order to develop your light, you have to evolve, you have to develop, you have to grow. You stay where you are, so your default position, will always be a shadow position. So how does it work? So the way the Kabbalists like to say it, like Isaac, for example, the way he likes to say it is, men are lines and women are circles. He calls it igulim and yosher, which is, of course, a simple physical expression, but what he, of course, means is something deeper. Men are about hierarchy, status, competition, rules, lines, right? It's either for or against. Lines are divide. They analyze. Lines are, go up in one direction. They're linear. They're thrusting forward. They're directive. That's the kav. Luther calls the kav that, many, many masters kind of developed out of Luria. The Vilna Gaon talks about this as well. So that's men, right? Women are called igulim, which is circle, right? So circle is interconnectivity. It's enmeshment. It's relationship. Now, both line and circle each have their unique shadow. So the the shadow of line is you threaten the man's analysis, if you threaten his status, you threaten his direction, you threaten his purpose, you threaten his place in the hierarchy of the line. So he sometimes responds in ways which are shadow, male shadow, which produces evil. If you can stop his thrusting forward, right? So he sometimes, not always, usually doesn't, sometimes, the man responds in a shadow way, and that produces evil. We call that war, or we call that rape. That's clear masculine shadow. However, feminine shadow works in the same way. Threaten the circle means threaten the enmeshment, the relationship, right? The interconnectivity, which are the manifestations of circle, the qualities of circle. So when you threaten circle, you of course get feminine shadow. Just like when you threaten line, you get masculine shadow. And that's precisely what the Coen brothers, they were expressing precisely this idea gorgeously, in order to get my, facelift, i.e. relationship, because I can't find the right guy without it, I'm willing to kind of cause great violence and destruction. So I just thought that was a brilliant expression of this core, biblical, mystical, Lurianic idea. So at you, sir.
Okay, one, I felt kind of guilty watching this movie. Somehow I felt like that as a religious person, I should not enjoy this movie. I did enjoy the movie, but I felt guilty, and the movie just seemed so sadistic. Like, they were all, varying degrees of bad, and
right, exactly.
They were just doing, bad things to each other or callous things, and I felt a little bit like I was at the Roman Colosseum, watching, lions eating lions. It's just, it made me feel a little sick. Second, I was interviewing a movie producer today named Mary Allo, who's just produced a movie called Battle in Seattle about the World Trade Organization riots in Seattle in 1999. And while I have no sympathy for the rioters in that case, I am glad that someone's made a movie about people who believe in something greater than themselves and their family. The search for transcendence. At least these rioters believed in something. And I was thinking as I was watching this movie, if any of these characters believed in something greater than themselves, they wouldn't be in this giant mess. If they had any sort of cause above and beyond themselves, they probably wouldn't steal into other people's homes and just be so reckless in their pursuit of money and personal advancement. And so any sort of code would have saved countless lives
Right.
in this movie. So any sort of boundaries and a strong sense of boundaries would have saved them from destruction. Also, the notion that I know I often think I'm smarter than the people around me, and many of the characters in this movie think they're smarter than the people around them, but really
that was only until you met me, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
the ability to deceive oneself and to not realize that other people are onto you, and to wonder how long you can get away with it. Was another disturbing part of the movie, and it was kind of depressing that there wasn't any good guy in the movie. Right.
Well, there was one. There was one. I mean, you said so many things, but let's maybe pick up on that for a second. I thought that there was one. There was one person who was more of a tragic hero, and I wouldn't call him a hero. He was a tragic figure as opposed to a decadent figure. In other words, most of the figures in the movie were decadent. The one person I thought was tragic and not decadent was the owner of the Hard Bodies. What was it called?
The manager. Yeah, I think he was the manager of the gym.
The manager of the gym, who was in love with her, and she's changing and kind of devolving, and and is kind of drawn in to go and break in and break into his computer just to prove that he's a man.
Yeah. Which was, again, he didn't have a boundary on love. Like, even love needs boundaries.
No, I think he was. He was clearly.
Yeah, that's where
wrong.
he screwed up. Yeah, because he didn't have a boundary on love.
Yeah, no, I think your substantive point is correct. I'm actually just kind of making a kind of more emotional or a kind of interior texture point, which is, I think that he's a classical example. Maybe we could focus on him for a second, then I want to go back to some other things he said, and we can just talk about him for a second. So you're saying, just reflect back, of course, that his particular ethical failing is that, for him, love is a god.
Yeah.
And since he's worshiping at the altar of love, we've slain all the gods except for Aphrodite, so he's willing to do anything for love. Love overrides, all other, ethical concerns, including, breaking in,